Hey guys, Scott here. Today I want to talk about a fantasy land in which Dead Hard is removed from the game or behavior nerfed in that it is essentially removed from the game and no one's ever going to use it anymore. I want to talk about how the game would change in this fantasy land that I don't think will actually happen, but if it does, I think this is what will result from that. First off, killers will actually be able to lunge again. If you've noticed, there's sort of a meta now where killers just don't really want to lunge anymore. And that is problematic a lot of the times because sometimes you have to lunge to get a hit because they're not quite close enough to get a regular just tap attack. And so killers are always just have that pit in their stomach that when they make that lunge, they're going to see the survivor flash white and everyone's going to be upset except the survivor. And that is true. The game will encourage lunging more. On the other side, though, lunging is always the weakest thing a killer can do. You typically never want to lunge unless it's absolutely necessary. Because when you lunge, it introduces reaction time for the survivor to attempt something. They can try to 360 you. They can try to fake a window that you're swinging at. Even when you're swinging through a pallet, it's a little known fact that if you just tap on one, there's a lingering hitbox on the end of your attack that moves you forward a little bit. And even if you get stunned, it still hits people. But if you do a full lunge through a pallet, you'll likely get stunned before it actually connects. So as killer, you typically want to lunge as little as possible. But I'm not going to pretend that there are a couple of scenarios going around a corner where you have to lunge around to hit someone vaulting a TL wall window or something like that, where there wouldn't be that fear anymore of trying to, get dead-hearted. And that would be good. It would feel nice as killer to be able, in those scenarios, try to lunge. Lunging is still the worst form of attack a killer can do, but there are scenarios where it's necessary to where it'll feel a lot nicer that we don't have to worry about that. It is strange that there is a perk that sort of invalidates an entire method of attacking, even though it's always been the weakest form of attack the killer has. It's still weird that there's a perk that just invalidates that entirely. And so I think there will be lots of celebration on that end. So Dead Hard's removed. What would happen? Killers would rejoice for several weeks. Survivors would complain for several weeks. People would say they're quitting the game on, Survivor side. They wouldn't quit the game. And we'd pretty much be in the exact same spot population-wise. But over time, here's what's going to happen. And this is why I would be worried about it and why I think Dead Hard, while annoying as hell on a lot of killers, is acceptable. I'm not even going to say it's fine. It's acceptable. Because what's going to happen is people are going to transition to a different exhaustion perk. Because typically every survivor build has an exhaustion perk. There's no reason to not run them. They're among the best perks in the game. And they typically only work when you're using one of them. There's a couple of scenarios where you can combine things like Lithe and Balanced Landing, and they won't necessarily use it at the same time. But typically, every good survivor build is going to have at least one exhaustion perk in it. And if we take away Dead Hard, we're going to see Balanced Landing numbers go up a little bit, Lithe go up a little bit. But I think what we're really going to see is Sprint Burst go up by a lot. And Sprint Burst is my least favorite perk in the entire game to go against. And I've been saying this since I started playing the game. And the reason is Sprint Burst essentially amplifies the effect of my least favorite thing in the entire game a survivor can do, which is running early. Running early is the smartest thing and most annoying thing a survivor can do. It's funny that brand new players and competitive, the best survivors in the entire world, both have the same philosophy about running early. Now, new players run early because they just are terrified and they don't want to have a heartbeat near them. But really good players will run early because if the killer does not have a movement ability and the survivors run really early, it's to a point where it becomes such a waste of time to make up the distance that survivor has made by running early that there's just not even a point of chasing them anymore. So the chase doesn't even start to begin with. And you'll notice if you go against a really sweaty team, it's very rare, but when I do see it, I can identify it. People will run extremely, extremely early, and that is so frustrating because unless you're playing Light, Nurse, or Spirit, by the way, what a strange coincidence that those killers are the ones that can counter this incredibly strong strategy of holding forward very early. Unless you're playing one of those killers, if people run early, unless they're in a corner of the map, which is not very common, you're at a scenario where it's just a waste of time to even begin chasing them. And that's why it's so frustrating. Because even with something like Dead Hard, at least I have the chance to outplay it. It's not necessarily very good if they get to use it under a pallet, but at least I have the opportunity to try something. If people just run super early, my skill as a killer is irrelevant. I can't even do anything. I just have to hold forward for 30 seconds to even begin to catch up with them. And the opposite equivalent to that is like a killer making a dead zone, by the way. when a killer makes a dead zone, that's basically negating the survivor skill. Doesn't matter how good the survivor is, if there's no windows or pallets or anything for them to use, they might as well be a brand new player in terms of going against a good killer. So that's the equivalent. And if a survivor runs early, there's nothing I can do, and that's why I find it so early. So how does this tie back into if Dead Hard's removed? Well, if Dead Hard's removed, more people will use Sprint Burst. And what Sprint Burst allows you to do is hold off on running that early a lot later. So basically what this means is the killer has to commit more of their time to get even closer to the person, whereas normally they might approach them and see the survivors already running and just go, I'm not doing that. That's going to take too long to catch up. I don't have a movement ability. I'm not even going to try. But if the survivors have Sprint Burst, what's going to happen is the killer is going to get a lot closer, and they're going to devote more of their time and distance to approaching that survivor. But the survivor is going to be able to effectively run away at the same time because they're going to move much faster for those 3 seconds. And so the killer has to devote way more time to getting to that spot. And when they see the actual Sprint Burst, they're going to go, so then do I run another 20 seconds just to begin a chase with the survivor, or do I just go somewhere else? And every time I bring the scenario up, people say, well, the counter to Sprint Burst is you bait out the Sprint Burst. You approach a certain amount, the survivor uses the Sprint Burst, runs away, then you go away for a little bit and come back. But the problem is that go away and come back thing, you're sort of making light of that scenario pretty heavily. Because if you go away for, 20 seconds, that means you have to walk back for 20 seconds, at which point their exhaustion's back. Let's say you walk away for 10 seconds and the survivor comes back to the generator. Then you're in the scenario where you've just spent 10 seconds walking there, 10 seconds walking back, and then 10 seconds walking again. You basically wasted 30 seconds just trying to bait out one survivor's Sprint Burst. And then a lot of people always say, well, then bait it out and go chase somebody else. What if the other guy has Sprint Burst? This is the problem. If more people start using Sprint Burst, you're just going to be in the scenario where, well, then the other guy has it, and you approach them, and they do the same thing, and then you go back to the first guy, and then you haven't accomplished anything. You're just like a killer without their head, just running around in circles. And that's the problem with Sprint Burst. It makes it so you can do that runaway early strat even earlier than before, which makes it so the killer struggles to even get into chase to begin with. And I'm willing to bet the community is going to realize that not being able to chase someone at all is a bit more annoying than having a chase extended in length because they dead harded a hit. That's my bet. I'm willing to bet in 3 months after Dead Hard is dead and buried, we will see an equal amount of complaints about people running early with Sprint Burst. And that's why I'm not super excited or all for them deleting Dead Hard or, nerfing it to a point where it's unusable, which is typically what behavior does to begin with. So that's why I don't even defend Dead Hard. I just feel like it's a necessary deterrent to everybody using Sprint Burst, because I, to this day, unless I'm playing Demogorgon or Huntress, think a team of 4 Sprint Bursts that know how to use it is way scarier than a team of 4 Dead Hards, because there's basically no counterplay to the Sprint Burst, whereas with Dead Hard, at least I have kind of a chance to try something. It's not a great chance, but I have a chance to do something. And so it feels way worse going against Sprint Burst, especially, I haven't even started talking about people that know how to use Sprint Burst properly, that know how to 99 it and stuff. Sprint Burst is a harder perk to use than Dead Hard, which is strange to say, but it's actually true. If people know how to 99 Sprint Burst, it's even more annoying than a Dead Hard, because again, at a Dead Hard, at least I can try to time a hit at a pallet to hit them. But if someone knows how to 99 in a chase, oh my God, it's so annoying. They just get to go somewhere else for free. And I find that 10 times more annoying than Dead Hard. Again, unless I'm Huntress or Demogorgon. But that's why I think it wouldn't be all sunshine and rainbows if Dead Hard was removed from the game. A lot of people would move towards the running early playstyle with Sprint Burst, which gives them a much later window to do that. And that I think would be even less fun and would be complained about just as much. So that's what I think would happen if Dead Hard was removed. Curious if you guys agree. That's it. Thanks for watching. See ya.